Kamala Harris, red threat or red herring? Kamala Harris, just saying her name gets people fired up. Some call her a socialist. Some even whisper the C word, communist. Is she a radical leftist, hell-bent on turning America into a workers' paradise? Or is she just a progressive politician trying to make America a little more, well, progressive? Harris's rise to power has been nothing short of meteoric. First female district attorney of San Francisco, first female attorney general of California, and now the first female, first black, and first Asian American vice president of the United States. That's a lot of firsts. No wonder she ruffles some feathers. But all this talk of communism, it's enough to make you spit out your borscht. Let's be honest, most people throwing around these accusations couldn't tell Marx from Macy's. So, let's dive in and separate the Red Scare tactics from the reality of Kamala Harris. Where did this whole communist thing even come from? Well, it's a tale as old as American politics itself, of fear-mongering. Slap a label on your opponent, make them seem scary, and bam, you've got yourself a campaign strategy. One of the main accusations stems from Harris's support for Medicare for all. Opponents claim it's a socialist takeover of healthcare. They point to her record on criminal justice reform, saying she's soft on crime. They even bring up her past relationship with former San Francisco Mayor Willie Brown, a relationship that ended decades ago. But let's be clear, supporting universal healthcare doesn't make you a communist. Advocating for criminal justice reform doesn't make you a communist. And having a personal life doesn't make you a communist, it just makes you human. These accusations are often based on cherry-picked facts and outright distortions. They prey on people's fears and prejudices, rather than engaging in honest debate. It's lazy politics at its finest, and it's time to call it out for what it is: bullshit. Okay, so if she's not a communist, then what is she? Well, Kamala Harris is a self-proclaimed progressive Democrat. She believes in using the power of government to address social and economic inequalities. She supports expanding access to healthcare, affordable housing, and quality education. She's a vocal advocate for women's rights, LGBTQ+ rights, and racial justice. Her track record as a prosecutor has been criticized by some progressives. They argue that she was too tough on crime and didn't do enough to address racial disparities in the criminal justice system. But others point to her work on initiatives like re-entry programs for formerly incarcerated individuals as evidence of her commitment to reform. Her political ideology aligns with the progressive wing of the Democratic Party. Think Bernie Sanders, Elizabeth Warren, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. They believe in a more equitable society where everyone has a fair shot at success. They see government as a force for good, a tool to lift up the most vulnerable and create a more just society.
Know you've been a good friend.
Now let's talk policy. What would a Harris administration actually mean for everyday Americans? Well, it depends on who you ask. Supporters argue that her policies would lead to a more just and equitable society. They point to her support for policies like raising the minimum wage, expanding access to affordable healthcare, and tackling climate change. They argue that these policies would benefit working families, improve public health, and protect the environment. Critics, on the other hand, argue that her policies would stifle economic growth and lead to government overreach. They point to her support for increased taxes on the wealthy and regulations on businesses. They argue that these policies would discourage investment, stifle innovation, and harm the economy. The truth, as always, lies somewhere in the middle. There are legitimate arguments to be made on both sides. The reality is that any policy decision will have both positive and negative consequences. The key is to weigh those consequences carefully and choose the path that leads to the greatest good for the greatest number of eyes and unheard. They see their values and way of life under attack. This has led to a surge in right-wing populism, as seen in the rise of Donald Trump and the Tea Party movement. Section 6. A Nation Divided. Bridging the gap in American politics. America is a nation divided. The political divide has never been wider. We live in separate echo chambers, consuming news that confirms our existing biases and demonizing those who hold different views. This polarization is tearing at the very fabric of our society, making it difficult to have meaningful conversations about the issues that matter most. So, where does Kamala Harris fit into all of this? She's a lightning rod for both sides of the political spectrum. To her supporters, she represents hope, progress, and the promise of a more inclusive America. To her detractors, she embodies everything that's wrong with the Democratic Party: elitism, identity politics, and a disconnect from the concerns of everyday Americans. The reality is that Kamala Harris is a complex and nuanced figure who defies easy categorization. She's a product of her time, shaped by both the progressive values she espouses and the political realities she must navigate. Full dialogue about the future we want to create. Section 8, the Harris legacy, a call for reflection and engagement. So, is Kamala Harris a communist? The answer is a resounding no. But the fact that this question is even being asked speaks volumes about the state of American politics. We've become so accustomed to hyperbole and misinformation that it's difficult to discern fact from fiction. It's time to move beyond the labels and engage in a more nuanced and substantive conversation about the issues that matter most. Let's talk about healthcare, education, climate change, and criminal justice reform. Let's have honest debates about the role of government, the limits of free speech, and the meaning of American identity. Kamala Harris's story is just one chapter in the ongoing saga of America. It's a story that's still being written, and it's a story that we all have a role in shaping. So let's put down our pitchforks, turn off the outrage machine, and start listening to each other. The future of our democracy depends